Hello, welcome to Exotic Gardening UK with me, Yorkshire Kris. And on this week's episode, we're going to be looking at plants with absolutely enormous leaves that you can grow next year in your garden. So in this list, we're looking at hardy plants and less hardy plants, but they can all be grown outside in the UK in the summer months, and most of them can be left in the ground as well. Some of them are completely hardy, while some of them may need bringing in or protecting. But what they all have in common is they grow absolutely enormous leaves which are truly exotic looking and pretty breathtaking when they get absolutely huge above your head. And if you stay to the end of the video, you'll see my number one choice for growing, and it's something you may have never seen before. Why not try growing from seed this season Mula siamensis, which has huge paddle-like leaves. This one came back from the ground from last winter and it's approaching 2 meters tall, and the leaves are normally green with wine striping or speckling, but in this case it's completely burgundy flush all the way through, and that is because of variability of seed. But it's got huge leaves, it's got some hardiness. Like I said, this stayed out in the winter all last year and it's come back and grown really well. We've got 3 plants here, fantastic for the garden. Another great plant to grow from seed every year for the huge leaves and tall statuesque presence is ricinus or castor oil plant. Yes, it's extremely poisonous if you eat the seeds, but generally, you know, you're not going to go around doing so. I'm here in between these big leaves, palmate leaves, nice green coloration. This is a type called zanzibarinus, which is the biggest leaf you can get on a castor oil plant easily in the UK. And like I said, these are quite small plants, so these are approaching 2 meters tall. They can get about a good 3, maybe 4 meters on really good years with lots of manure in the ground as well. And they've got huge luscious leaves, very easy to grow from seed in spring, and it's definitely a plant you should try growing next year. So this plant that's trying to knock me over is a canna, one of the large leaf cannas. This is Canna alisteinii, and it grows from seed, so it's very unlikely to get the canna virus, and it's also pretty hardy, very hardy for cannas. This has been out for years and years in the ground. Last year we got down to close to -8, -7.7. It wasn't mulched, it just left in the ground, and it's come back strongly, vigorously, well over 2 meters tall. We're looking at 2.5 meters tall at the top of the flowers there. So they do have the nice orange flowers, but it's the size of the leaves and it's the ease of which this plant grows, which is fantastic for the exotic garden or anywhere you want nice, big, luscious leaves. And it's a good replacement if you struggle with Musa banana plants, because you've got the similar style of leaf, almost as large, but much hardier, much more vigorous, and a fantastic plant for the garden. Now, I couldn't do a video about large leafed exotic looking plants without including this one. This is Guna cryptica, formerly known as Guna manicata in the UK, and it grows by far the largest leaves of any of the plants that you can grow outside in the UK. This can grow leaves about 1.5 to 2 meters across on stems that can be over 2 meters tall as well. Nice prickly stems under there. It's hardy enough, it's gone through winter after winter. The old leaves just go over the crown in autumn into winter, and then it unfurls new leaves quite early in spring, and by midsummer it's at its magnificent best. Huge leaves cover a large area. They're quite rough, like sandpaper-like leaves with prickles underneath, and they're very robust. As long as you've got a nice damp area in the garden, it will grow to its full potential. If you can grow it as a pond marginal almost, it's got its feet into moisture all the time, it'll grow even bigger than this. So a fantastic plant that I wouldn't be without in the garden. Can be quite hard to find sometimes because very often it's labelled as manicata or cryptica and it's actually tinctoria, which is a great plant but doesn't grow as big as cryptica. So I've done some other videos on this you might want to watch because it's a bit confusing with the different names. Basically, you want the big Guna, you want the one with the huge big leaves, and this is Guna cryptica. Wouldn't be without it in the garden. Now for something a little bit different. It's a very hardy plant. This is a Ralia alata, and this is Aurea variegata, but you can get the plain green forms, you get the white or the yellow variegation. And you might think, oh, this has got quite small leaves, when in fact, actually, each leaf, that's one big leaf, and these are just the leaflets coming off it. So that's one big, huge divided leaf. So in my book, this has got huge leaves, and it's hardy, like I said. It's great in partial shade. It does have some frothy, sort of creamish green flowers as well, which the bees absolutely adore later in the season. But the main features of this plant is the fact that it'll just grow in those places. It's a bit dry or a bit moist. It'll just grow in different conditions as long as it's not windy. So it needs to be sheltered, and the leaves are absolutely huge. So definitely fits in with the scheme of this video. So a good one to look out for, a great plant to try in your garden. Now this is a great plant to look out for. It's the hardy umbrella tree Scheffler. And there's various different forms. This is a big leaved Scheffler macrophylla, and it grows these huge leaves like fingers. They're quite sort of furry underneath as well, with nice sort of bronzy golden hairs or tomentonum on the growth points and underneath the leaves as well. And they get really large, as you can see. Now, it's not the easiest plant to find. You won't find it in most garden centres, but if you look out for it, you can find this plant. Hardiness wise, totally fine down to -5, gets down to -6, -7. It can defoliate. This one defoliated almost last year when it went down to nearly -8, but it's come back strongly, huge leaves, and it grows tall. It is a tree. It's already 2–2¼ meters tall, and it will continue growing. If you want a more bushy plant, you can be sort of ruthless and cut the stem, and you'll get multiple stems growing underneath where you cut. But if you want a nice single stem plant with huge leaves, you can just let it grow naturally like this in a sheltered area with some shade, bit of dappled sunlight as well, and it will grow very nicely indeed, providing you don't live in extremely cold areas of the UK. Now, the number one plant that I think you should try in the next growing season are Colocasias. Colocasias truly are tropical looking plants coming from mainly the subtropics and the tropical regions of the world, and they have these beautiful heart-shaped leaves. One of the common names is elephant ears, which is also the common name for various other plants as well. This example is probably the hardest type of Colocasia. This is Colocasia pink china, and this is a smallish leaf. This one's only about 30 centimeters. They can get much bigger than this. Colocasia pink china can get leaves of 60, 70, even 80 centimeters from top to tip. So this isn't a huge example. There's also Colocasias such as Mammoth and Jack's Giant, which have grown around the garden, which get leaves up to a metre in length as well. So really huge leaves, really beautiful tropical leaves for the garden. But these aren't the biggest types of Colocasias. There's two exceptionally large Colocasia. There's Colocasia Thai Giant, which I've grown before, but there's one even bigger and better, which can grow from a small plant to absolute beast, an absolute enormous plant with huge leaves. It's hard to believe they can get so big in the UK. So let's just head over to Ashley down in Suffolk, who's growing this amazing plant, one that you should be growing next year for those truly wow massive leaves.
Hello, my name's Ashley, and this is my collection of Myc Giants. This plant was previously named Colocasia gigantea. Recently had a name change. There are two main strains within this group, one being Thai Giant from Thailand, and this one from Asia, Laos Giant. I've grown Thai Giant in the past, and although it got very large, not quite as big as this one. This plant has grown all this in one season from one little plant in spring. It's been in my greenhouse this whole summer and put on all this growth inside there. Unfortunately, you will not achieve this size in the UK with our heat in summers. It needs extra warmth and care. The greenhouse gets between 30 and 40 degrees a day. It is heavily fed. It's a very hungry plant, very thirsty. It is on drip irrigation and mister. It will help with spider mites because these types of plants will suffer from that. It is heavily fed on a weekly basis. As you can see, it's well worth it.
Thank you for watching this edition of Exotic Gardening with me, Yorkshire Kris. Join me next time where I'll be doing more in the garden.